Dear students and my teacher friends, Namaskar. I welcome you to the presentation lecture on functions of bone and the skeletal system. So today in this lecture we are going to discuss functions of bone, what role the bones are playing in our body, and we are also discussing the functions of the skeletal system. So the objective of this lecture: describe the six main functions of the skeletal system. Starting with the first point. Now, first of all, what is what is bone? What the bone is made up of? So, bone is an organ, and this organ is made up of several different tissues. So, several different tissues together they form a bone, and all this tissue work together in the structure of bone. So bone, also known as osseous tissue, is made up of cartilage, dense connective tissue, epithelium, adipose tissue, and nervous tissue. All this tissue together they constitute the bone. Now, the entire framework of bones and their cartilage constitute the skeletal system. So, all the bones of our body plus the cartilages they make the skeletal system of our body. Now, the branch of biology which study the structure of bone and also the bone disorder and the treatment of bone disorder, that branch of the biology is known as the osteology. So osteology is the branch of biology which study the structure of bone and the treatment of bone disorder. Here the osteology, osteo means bone and logy means study of. So in the first point we have discussed the structure of bone, what the bones are made up of, and what is osteology. Now, before we move on the second point of our discussion, let me show you this figure. See, this is in this figure, as you can see, parts of a long bone are shown. Okay, so by viewing this figure, you can realize what our bones are made up of, which are the tissues that are present in the structure of bone. So here in this figure, structure of long bone. Once again, the structure of a long bone, humerus of arm. Now in this figure, a red bone marrow is shown. So here you can see head of femur is shown in the section, and in the structure of head of femur inside you can see yellow bone marrow is present, and also there is the presence of red bone marrow. So what these bone marrows are made up of and what are the function of this red and yellow bone marrow, that we are also going to discuss in this lecture. Then in this figure, see figure 6.1, the bones and cartilages of the human skeleton. And here the key is given. So the light brown color is used for the axial skeleton, and the light yellow color is used for the appendicular skeleton. Blue color is used for hyaline cartilage, green color used for elastic cartilage, red color used for fibrocartilages. Okay. Now the second point, see, the skeletal system in our body performs several basic functions. So one by one, we are discussing this function. First function is the support. So skeletal system in our body serves as the structural framework for the body and by supporting soft tissue. So all our soft tissues which are present in our body, they are supported by the bony framework of the skeleton. So in between the bones, uh, or on the surface of bone, many a times soft tissues are present. So this soft tissues, they are supported by, they are provided with the surfaces by the bones of the skeletal system, and uh, providing attachment point for the tendons of the skeletal muscle. So the skeletal muscle tendon, they attach with the bones. So here in this figure, see, figure 11.1, a relationship of skeletal muscles to bones. Okay. Okay, so here you can see tendons are shown, then the bone is shown. This way, and movement of forearm lifting a weight. So even though this topic is not in your syllabus, that means this topic is not there, it is not mentioned in medical entrance syllabus, so we are not going to discuss about this thing. And on the left hand side, you can see how the tendons and the skeletal muscle, they are attached with the bones. Now moving forward, and now we are discussing the second point. Second point, protection. Okay. So the skeleton protect the most important internal organ from injury. So all our internal delicate bodily organs, they are protected from the injury by our skeletal system, by our skeleton. For example, the cranial bones of the cranium, they protect our brain. So our brain is protected inside the cranial bones, and rib cage protect heart and lung. So protection, skeleton protect vital organs such as the brain. Now the third point, so third point, assistance in movement. Now we have seen that most of the skeletal muscle, they are attached with the bones. So when the skeletal muscle contract, they pull on the bone to produce movement. Okay, so once again, skeletal muscle, as we can see in the figure here, we can see that the skeletal muscles are attached with the bone, and when the skeletal muscle contract, they pull the bones, and when the bones are pulled, we are able to produce our movement. Now the fourth point, mineral homeostasis. Okay, so storage and release. Now bone tissue make up about 18% of the weight of the human body. That means if a person is weighing 100 kg, 100 kg, so that means 18%, that means 18 kg will be the weight of the bones of that person. Now, bones stores several minerals, especially calcium and phosphate, that means phosphorus, phosphate in the form of PO4 3 minus. So calcium in the form of Ca twice plus and phosphorus in the form of phosphate ion, uh, PO4 thrice minus, are stored in the bone. And this calcium and phosphorus contribute to the strength of the bone. So we can feel that, we know that our bones are very tough, okay, very solid. The reason for that is inside the bone the calcium and phosphorus is stored. That's why they are very strong, our bones are. Now, bone tissue stores about 99% of body's calcium. And whenever there is a requirement of this mineral, for example, in our body, when there is a requirement of calcium or phosphorus, so immediately the bone release the calcium and phosphorus in the blood. And by releasing this calcium and phosphorus, it maintains the homeostasis. That means the mineral balances or the homeostasis are maintained by release of calcium phosphorus by the bone. And bones are also distributing the minerals to other part of the body via the medium of blood. So in short, we can say whenever there is a requirement, bone releases calcium and phosphorus, and this mineral, these ions are distributed in the other parts of the body as per the requirement of our body. So here in this fourth point, mineral storage and acid base homeostasis. So bone stores mineral such as Ca twice plus, PO4 thrice minus, which are necessary for electrolyte and acid base balance. Now the fifth point, blood cell production. Now within certain bones, a connective tissue called red bone marrow produces red blood cell. So in our body, in certain bones, connective tissue is present, which is known as red bone marrow, and the function of red bone marrow is to produce RBC, white blood cell. WBCs are formed by red bone marrow, and the platelets are formed by the red bone marrow. And the process for the formation of blood cell, that process is known as hemopoiesis. Okay, hemo means blood and poiesis means making. Now red bone marrow, the structure of red bone marrow, what the red bone marrow is made up of. So red bone marrow consists of developing blood cell. In the structure of red bone marrow, developing blood cells are present, adipocyte cells are present, fibroblasts are present, macrophages are present within a network of reticular fibers. Okay, so all this all these cells constitute red bone marrow. Now this red bone marrow, it is present in developing bones of the fetus. So the bones of the fetus, they possess the red bone marrow. And in case of adult, so in some adult bone, for example the hip bones, then the ribs and sternum, uh, sternum also known as breastbone, then the vertebra, backbones, skulls, and ends of the bones of the humerus and femur, thigh bone. So in all this bone, this red bone marrow is present. And in a newborn, so in a newborn baby, all bone marrow is red. Okay, and this red bone marrow in newborn baby is involved in hemopoiesis. That means red bone marrow in the newborn, it is involved in the formation of blood cell. Now as the baby's age is increasing, so what happened with the increasing age, much of the bone marrow changes from red to yellow. So as with the progression of age, red bone marrow gradually changes into the yellow bone marrow. And you will learn about the blood cell production in detail in section 19.2. That means in the circulatory system, when you study the circulatory system topics, in that when you study the hemopoiesis, that time the blood cell production will be explained to you. Okay, so this is about the red bone marrow and how the blood cells are formed. Blood cells are produced by red bone marrow, and what is hemopoiesis. All this point we have discussed. Now the sixth point, we have already discussed this point. Okay, now the sixth point, triglyceride storage. Now what is yellow bone marrow? So yellow bone marrow consists mainly of adipose tissue. Yellow bone marrow is made up of adipose tissue cell, and this adipose cell stores triglyceride, and this stored triglycerides are potential chemical energy reserve. So whenever in our body there is a requirement for energy, so these triglycerides are oxidized, and there is the ATP formation is taking place in our body. So this is about the yellow bone marrow or the triglyceride storage. Now the final function of our bone. So bones also produce hormone, and hormone which is produced by bone is known as osteocalcin. So osteocalcin is a hormone, and this hormone help to regulate insulin secretion, glucose homeostasis is maintained by osteocalcin, and energy expenditure in our body is also under the control of osteocalcin hormone, which is produced by the bones of our body. So let me show you this entire figure. Okay, functions of the skeletal system. Okay, so with this we have completed this lecture on functions of bone and the skeletal system. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, and I also hope that this lecture will be helpful in your exam preparation and also in your studies. My name is Manish Kosti sir. I am from Ahmedabad, India. Bye bye. Namaste.